While it's now possible to build in the game with a base block, having a wide variety of blocks to build with will make the game much more fun. Let's add a dirt block, a grass block, a brick block, and a wood block to get things rolling. Our objectives for this module are to create several child blueprint classes of the BP base block. We'll add a way to switch between which block we're currently building with, and finally, we'll provide a way to remove blocks from the world. To create the new blocks, make sure you're in the Blueprints folder, and then find the Blocks folder and open it. We're going to make child classes of the BP base block. To do that, right-click on the BP base block and select Create Child Blueprint Class. We'll name the first one BP_dirt block. Then open it for editing. Select the block mesh and find the Materials section. There are 3 materials. Element 0 is the top material. We'll change that to dirt. In fact, we're going to change all of these materials to dirt. Element 1 is the side materials, and we'll change that to dirt as well. And then the element 2 is the bottom. We'll change that to dirt. The dirt block's pretty straightforward. Click Compile and Save, and close the dirt block. Right-click on the BP base block again, create Child Blueprint class, and name this one BP_grass block. The grass block's a little bit more complicated. Select the block mesh. It will have 3 different materials assigned to it. So for the top, click on element 0, type in grass, and select MI grass top, material instance grass top. For element 1, type in grass again, and find the MI grass side. And finally, for element 2, type in grass once more, and find the MI grass bottom. Compile and save. For the brick block, repeat those steps. Right-click on the base block, create Child Blueprint class, BP_brick block, open in the editor, select the block mesh, and type in brick, MI brick. We're going to use the same texture for the top, the middle, and the bottom. So brick again, and brick for the bottom. And compile and save. Close that. And right-click on the BP base block, create Child Blueprint class, BP_wood. Open that up for editing. Select the block mesh. Go over to the materials. Wood, material instance wood. Wood again. And wood once more. Compile, save, and close the BP wood block. After you finish the project, you can bring in as many materials as you like. You can make your own materials and bring them in and use them on your own blocks and make as many blocks as you like. Before we get to that, though, let's provide a way to switch which block we're currently using. Go to the Blueprints folder and open up the BP block player. Now, this is the code we wrote to spawn a new block, and we should put a big comment around that. So drag and select the whole piece of blueprint code and hit C and type in spawn a block. Now let's observe over here at the very end where we spawn actor BP base block, the class BP base block is the class reference that we're spawning. What we'll do is we'll create a variable for the current block and then use that here and switch that variable's value depending on which block we want to use to build. To do that, let's add a new variable. Click the Add Variable button and call this current block. For the variable type, click the drop-down, type in BP_base block. And from the BP_base block, we want a class reference, not an object reference. An object reference is a reference to an instance of the class. We want a class reference, which is going to tell us which class we'll use to build the block with. Let's click compile and provide a default value for that. Now notice when we click compile, this is currently set to none. That drop down will have all of the classes that are BP base blocks. And that's the thing about inheritance. Although a dirt block is a different class, it's a child class of the BP base block. Therefore, it is a BP base block, as well as being a BP underscore dirt block. So let's set the default block to the BP base block. We'll switch that later. We'll provide a way to switch that, but just set that to BP base block for right now. Drag out the current block variable, do a get on it, holding down the control key. Sorry, I probably said I wasn't going to mention that again, but I did. Let's drag off of the current block and hook that into the class. Now, nothing's changed just yet. We're still making a new actor of type BP base block because the current block has that value. Let's provide a way to change the value of current block. Just find an open area in the event graph, right click, and press the 1 key on your keyboard. And for keyboard event, let's choose number 1. And then let's drag out current block and do a set on that. So we'll say when the 1 key is pressed, we'll set this to BP base block. Right click, type in 2 on your keyboard and select keyboard event 2. And I'm just going to duplicate this node, select it, Control W. And when 2 is pressed, I'll set current block to the dirt block. And right click. When 3 is pressed, duplicate this, Control W. And when that is pressed, we'll set this to the grass block. Right click, 4, duplicate. This will be the brick block. And right click one more time, 5, and duplicate. That will be the wood block. So we're changing the value of the current block variable depending on which key is pressed. I'll highlight all of those, put a comment, change the current block. Now let's test it. Compile, save, back to the map, press play. Now, nothing should have changed. We should be putting down the base block right now. I'm going to tap 2 on the keyboard, and now I'm placing dirt blocks. And now 3 should be grass blocks, and 4. And we've got the brick block, and 5. Finally, we've got our wood block. So we provided a way to change the current block. The last bit of functionality we'll add for this module is to provide a way to remove a block. Let's find an area near the add block code, and it's going to look very similar to this. It won't be quite as complicated because we won't be turning towards where we're removing the block. So let's right click and type in remove block to get the action event remove block. And in the same way we did a timer and an event and a clear timer, we're going to do those nodes as well, similar nodes as well, just these will be for removing a block. So we'll drag off of the pressed, set timer by event, and we will right click, add custom event. We'll name this remove block from world, and we'll hook up the delegate, set the time to 0.2, and make sure looping is checked. And finally drag off of that set timer by event node and call the remove block from world event. So it runs immediately when we start doing that. Let's also come right off of the release tab and clear timer by function name. And again, to get the function name right, in case there were any misspellings here, select the custom event, press F2, Control C, come back to function name here, and Control V to paste that in. All that's left to do is write the code to actually remove the block. So to do that, we'll call the get crosshair location function we previously wrote. Look that up. That will return the location of the crosshair. We'll call the get clicked on block function that we previously wrote. And look that up and use the crosshair location as the target. We'll make a branch, hold down the B key, left click. And if we successfully clicked on a block, we'll need to check if the block is breakable because we don't want to delete the floor, which is not breakable. And later we might have other blocks that we don't want to break. So we'll drag off of the hit block and type in is breakable to get its is breakable value. And we'll make another branch, B, left click, and make that a condition. And if that's true, or if it is breakable, we'll drag off of the hit block and type in destroy actor. There it is right there. And we'll destroy that block. And I'm going to use a reroute node, double clicking on that wire to neaten that up a little bit. And that's pretty much it for the remove block functionality. I'm going to highlight that. Press C, add a comment, and remove a block. And of course, no code is correct until we test it. So let's compile, save, come back to the map, click play. And let's try using some more interesting blocks. I press 3 to use grass blocks, and then right click to remove those blocks. Let's right click on the floor to test. The floor is not going away, which is good. And now we can really start building and modifying our builds by adding blocks and removing blocks. In this module, we created several child classes of the BP base block. We added a method to switch between which block we're building with, and finally we added a way to remove the blocks from the world.